Hopefully you can all see my screen, and thanks everybody for joining us for this session. I know I'm up against good company right now with Wayne's session, but the cool part about this is that the sessions are recorded. So if you happen to have to hop off, you'll be able to access this. And so, you know, one of the most important people to study in this game of life is us, is our own selves. And so that's why I called the session Understanding You, because many times we are so focused, especially given the space that we work in, right? We're so focused on developing other people, and it's all about others. And so today, for at least this 30 minutes, it's about you. So we're going to start with using a polling software. It's called Mentimeter. Miriam, who you'll meet here shortly, she is kind of assisting me today, and she's one of my colleagues and co-facilitators for a couple of programs that we do. So she's going to provide this link in the chat. It's www.menti.com. And then once you get there, you will enter this code 7828349. And here's what we're going to do. So if you, I'm going to give you a moment to kind of get set, but I'm going to keep talking here. The image that you're seeing on the screen is a hand that is holding up a mirror. And so the question that you're going to find when we get to Mentimeter, and I'm going to go ahead and just toggle on over there, is this question. If someone were to hold a mirror up to you, so if they were to hold it up for you like this, how would you describe what you see in the mirror? And I'm going to ask you to use just one word responses, and you can use up to three words. All right. So if someone's holding a mirror up to you, they're holding it up for you and you're looking into it, how would you describe what you see in the mirror? And so once you're able to get into Mentimeter, you'll enter the code that you see at the top of this screen, the 7828349. You can use the link that's in chat, or you can type it in on your smartphone, whatever your preference is. So I see passionate, experienced, caring, confidence, warmth, intensity. Curious, caffeinated, love that, colorful, positive, passionate, a sponge. And the larger the word, the more times it's been mentioned. So it looks like caring, passionate, and positive are our front runners. Experienced, confident, compassion, smiling, excited. Great. Love this. Loyal, compassion, passionate, positive, and caring are keeping the front runners. Kind, friendliness, excellent. Great. Keep those coming in here. And I just want to point out that, oh, dynamic, that's a new one that's added to the mix here. Good. I want to commend all of you, because these are some great words and great reflections that you're seeing of yourselves. That's awesome. Beautiful, cool. Ooh, great words. Wonderful. Friendliness, caring, excited. Kind is also a big word that's been mentioned multiple times. Excellent. All right. So we're going to stay in Mentimeter, and give me just a second to reset things here. Now we're going to do the same question that we just did, but just a little bit differently. All right. So if someone were to hold up a mirror to you, how would they describe you? All right. So we've got how you would describe yourself. Now, how would they describe you? All right. We've got eager, happy, smile, warm, experienced, confident, caring, passionate, knowledgeable, hardworking, curious, warm, caring, passionate. Here's that word again, curious, doer, fun, excited, busy, eager, loving, trustworthy, serious, energetic, beautiful, focused, all right, give you just another few seconds to get those words in here. So it looks like our front runners here are curious, caring, and passionate. All right, I see the responses have slowed down. So I want to go back here just a second to the other one, and it's just going to be easier if I stop sharing for a moment so we can go back there. Okay. So this was the first one that we did, and we had kind, caring, passionate, helpful, and excited. That were the big words, and that's how you viewed yourself. And then for how others viewed you, the front words were curious, caring, and passionate. So we do have a commonality there as far as passionate for some, as how they view themselves and how others view you. So let me just toggle back here to the slides. Thank you for your responses. And by the way, that program, Mentimeter, you can go to mentimeter.com. I have been using the free version that has limited functionality, but there is a paid version available. It works lovely for engagement such as we've just done, especially in remote environments. So that little exercise that we just did took some vulnerability for you to come forth and say how you viewed yourself and how others view you. And I am pleased to see the positive responses that came through. But I'm sure that may not always be the case every day, and especially given 2020 and the year we've experienced, that those are all positive words, but many times some of the words might have looked like grieving, sadness, anger, frustration, stress, fatigue, Zoom gloom, all those types of things. And that is part of who we are. And we need to be aware of that in order to be able to do something about it as far as how we conduct ourselves with others, both personally and professionally. And so this whole understanding ourselves, understanding you, and being self-aware takes some vulnerability, because sometimes when we look in that mirror, it may not be something that we like to see or that we want to see. And so vulnerability is defined as the emotion we experience during times of uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. And this comes from the Dare to Lead work that I do, the book by Brene Brown. But I want you to think about your day-to-day. And is there anything that doesn't involve some level of uncertainty, risk, or emotional exposure? Can anybody think of anything? If you have something, would you type it in chat? As you think about yourselves personally and professionally, is there anything on your day-to-day that doesn't have some level of uncertainty, risk, or emotional exposure that you're doing? Miriam, are we seeing anything in the chat?
Nah, LOL, I can't think of a single one.
Yeah, that's usually the case. Because the truth of the matter is, we're being vulnerable every day. Sometimes it's a vulnerable experience just to get out of bed thinking, man, I'm getting off on the wrong side today, and I don't know how the rest of this day is going to unfold. Or when we're having those the need to have a difficult conversation with a loved one or a family member or a colleague, or if we've got some feedback to give, all of those, even if it's positive, that is a vulnerable experience for us. And when you're vulnerable, it is not about winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up anyway when you can't control the outcome, right? So I would like to invite us to do a little vulnerability experience with one another. So the first exercise in vulnerability is, if you don't have your webcam enabled, would you please enable your webcam for us? And if you're not able to do so, I understand we have some technology limitations, but I'm going to ask everybody to turn your webcam on. And while you're doing that, I'm going to ask that you engage in the chat. Tell me, what is it you see on the screen? When you look at this image, what do you see? And Miriam, if you wouldn't mind to share those responses.
Disco party, people dancing. I see fun, people dancing and having fun.
Yes.
Fun, movement, laughter, celebrating.
Awesome. Yes, yes, all of those things, right? And we've had some squelching of that in 2020. I know that many of you, I'm sure, given the nature of the work that we do, have been the drivers of that positivity and keeping that fun and keeping that energy up. However, we all need to focus on doing that for ourselves as well. So if you think you're not being vulnerable on a day-to-day basis, which it sounds like most of us are, I want us to do a little experiment in vulnerability here together. So I am going to stop sharing my screen. And thank you to those of you, I see faces now, yay. So if you are able to, please go ahead and turn your webcam on. There is no judgment if you're in the PJs. If you're like the newscaster and you're dressed from the waist up, it's all good, right? We've all adjusted to that during this COVID environment. All right, so the image that you saw on the screen was for a purpose, all right? Because we're gonna do a little dance break. Now, I don't know if you know it or not, but ATD Houston has a Spotify playlist for this conference, all right? And the goal of that is to help you keep your energy up during the conference. So we're gonna do a little vulnerability exercise with one another. And on the count of 3, in a moment, I'm going to put some music on, and we are going to dance like nobody's watching except for everybody is. And we are going to be vulnerable, and we don't care what the outcome is, but we are going to do it. All right. Are you with me? Is everybody with me? Okay, here we go. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. She took my heart. I don't know how it happens. We took the floor. She said, oh, don't you dare. Just keep it so free. I said, your heart in back. She said, dance with me. But it's not destiny. She said, just dance with me. All right. How are we feeling, ATD Houston conference attendees? Give me a reaction. How are you feeling after that? Use your little react. I'm seeing some hand claps. I'm seeing some thumbs up. Give me some love. Give me some reaction. Silly, but laughing. Okay. What else are we seeing, Miriam?
Love a dance break. Fun. Silly, but laughing. Lots of thumbs up.
All right. Awesome. Thank you for being vulnerable with me and doing that. All right. So let me tell you, and I didn't even tell you about myself, but you can see information on the app, and most of you, I think, know me, but my background is actually a biochemist. So I'm going to ask you to geek out with me for just a few minutes on what just happened to your body chemistry. All right. So give me a second here to click through. So that was 30 seconds of moving your body. All right. Now you can dance, you can walk, you can exercise, you can work out, you can sing, as long as you can do yoga, whatever it is that's moving your body is allowing you to release these hormones: dopamine, oxytocin, endorphin, and serotonin. So dancing does good. Does meaning dopamine, oxytocin, endorphin, and serotonin. So you have just released those hormones that are coursing through your body, and that will stay with you for up to 4 hours. All right. So you do another one during your lunch break, and you're going to be golden for the rest of the conference. All right. At least today, and then we'll start over tomorrow. So why is this an exercise in vulnerability, Joni? Well, many of us, dancing is almost equal to public speaking, but experiencing joy in front of another person is one of the most vulnerable things that we do. As sad as it is, the research shows that that is one of the most vulnerable things for us to do. Now, the converse can happen too. If you are stressed about having that feedback conversation with a colleague, or if you've just gotten an email from your boss and a project that you worked really, really hard on and that you're super proud of yourself for, your boss is saying, great job, but, and you should have, and that causes emotional reaction as well. And we have no more than 17 seconds in order to catch ourselves before we become emotionally hooked and we get icky hormones like cortisol and those types of things that you hear on those pharmaceutical commercials that are icky stuff, all right, that leave us feeling in an emotional hangover. And that can also last for up to 4 hours, all right? So I wanted to have us do a little reset here, because when we start to go inward and learn about ourselves, sometimes there are things that are like, when we do different types of assessments, which is what I'm going to talk about here in a moment, we say, no, I don't do that. That's not me. But then we go and ask a close colleague, a mentor, or a friend, or our spouse or partner, and they say, I'm sorry, but that is you, and that is how you are. So the self-awareness pill and the information we get is sometimes hard to swallow. So one of the things that you can do to help you to be self-aware, and I call myself an assessment junkie because I am not partial to any of them. I'm grateful that all of them are out there because they provide us with data and information, which is helpful for us to be self-aware. So one of the things that I pride myself in doing in my business is to help leaders to be self-aware so that they may more effectively communicate. And that comes from a very personal place for me. I grew up as a child with anxiety, and I was not aware of what was happening with me. My family was not aware of what was happening with me. Therefore, I was not able to communicate about it. We weren't able to effectively communicate about it. And that affected me not only as a child, but also well into my adult life. Until I started doing some therapy and some counseling and some coaching. So these assessments are really great guideposts to give you some data and information about yourself. Now, one of the caveats I will make is I'm not a proponent of just completing an assessment and then reading the report. What would be really helpful to you is to have someone debrief it with you, get some coaching around it to help guide you with that information that you're receiving. So I'm just going to share 3 of the assessments that I use most often. The first one is TTI's Trimetrix EQ, and it's a 3-part assessment. It has behaviors, which is DISC behavioral styles, if you're familiar with that. Motivators, or they used to call it driving forces. So what motivates you to behave the way that you do. And then there's a portion that talks about the integration of those 2. And then the final segment is on emotional intelligence. And so this is about your awareness of how you react emotionally. And then there's a social awareness, which is how others react to the way you conduct yourself as well. And then the final component of the report is blending those behaviors, motivators, and emotional intelligence. The second assessment that I use most often, and I saw that my colleague Bonnie Moore is on here, and she is responsible for me being aware of this assessment because she too is, I'm going to say, a classified assessment junkie, not unclassified. She's a classified assessment junkie with me. So Personalysis is another assessment that we use, and you can see the information on the screen here. And Personalysis gives you information in 3 dimensions. So your contribution, which is all about your engagement, what do you love to do? And your connection, which is around communication. This is how you show up to connect and interact when you feel trusted. And then commitment dimension is all about your decision making. So how do you make decisions? And then how do you communicate? Is that more of an internal process or an external process? So this is another great assessment tool that I use. And then this is another friend of ATD Houston, Nancy Parsons and the CDR assessment group. I have also used their 3-dimensional assessment suite, which is also a 3-part assessment that talks about your character, the drivers that motivate you, and then the risk. So what happens when you are under duress? How do you behave when that happens? So these are all great tools. Some of you may be familiar with them. Some of you may have completed the assessments already. But these are great tools that can help you to be more self-aware. And the importance of this self-awareness is going to impact you in a lot of ways, but in particular, these ways. All right. So I'm curious if you wouldn't mind, I know we're close on time here, but what does the acronym CPR stand for? You know, in corporate America, we love our 3-letter acronyms and our 4-letter acronyms. So what is CPR? If you wouldn't mind to type that for me in the chat. What are we seeing there, Miriam? We got any medical professionals here?
Cardiopulmonary resuscitation.
Yes. Yes. So that is what CPR is typically known for, right? But I'm going to introduce you to a new CPR today. And cardiopulmonary resuscitation is what we use to revive and kickstart the heart, right? And so we don't lose blood flow to the brain. And so this CPR that I'm going to introduce you today is also about reviving you from an individual standpoint that is going to impact how you interact with others externally as well and how they view you. So let me introduce you to the new CPR, which is around communication, productivity, and relationships. So understanding you impacts these 3 areas dramatically. All right. So with communication, there is a process for that communication. There are barriers that prevent us from effectively communicating. There are different medias that we can use to communicate, and knowing what our preference is as far as, are we more of a face-to-face kind of person, or are we okay with phone calls? What about our project team members? How do we best communicate there? And then the frequency. And I will tell you that given 2020, the frequency needs to be high anyway. I would err on the side of over communicating versus under communicating, but especially given the pandemic and the remote work that we've been doing, the frequency needs to be checked in on and probably needs to be increased. All right. So you need to be aware about yourself in the area of communication so that you are able to be more effective with others and help them to be aware, especially when you're collaborating and working together, and even more so remotely. And then productivity is all about mindset and asking for help. All right. Going back to vulnerability, another vulnerable thing for us to do is to admit that we need help, but to ask for it and to actually receive it. And the wisdom of being able to take the information that you're getting from these assessments, that you're getting from feedback discussions, that you're getting from your performance reviews and things that you're doing at work, and do something with it. All right. Especially if it doesn't sit well with you. If there's something that doesn't sit well with you, that goes to another phrase that I say all the time, which is discomfort leads to growth. And so if you're feeling that discomfort, then that is a growth moment for you, and you don't have to go it alone. And then the R of CPR is about relationships. And with relationships, there needs to be trust, there needs to be connection, there needs to be engagement and intention with our relationships, and even more so remotely. And I keep saying that because I know some of us may be returning back to the office off and on, but by and large, people are still working remotely, and this is not going to go away this year and probably not next year as well. And some people, some companies and organizations are making the decision to allow their employees, which is amazing, to be able to work remotely. But with that, there needs to be that intention in cultivating relationships, because it's going to be different than being able to bump into one another at the water cooler or the coffee pot or arriving early before a meeting. We can still do that remotely. We just need to be intentional about doing that. All right. So the self-awareness is going to impact you in your communication, in your productivity, and your relationships. And not only is that going to impact you, but the others that you interact with as well. So another quote from Dare to Lead is, "Who we are is how we lead, and self-awareness and self-love matter." So even if you have something or learn something that you know about yourself, or feedback that you receive that doesn't really sit well with you, it's frustrating for you, you don't want to be viewed that way, you have to love yourself anyway and be aware of it and be grateful that you're aware of it, because then you can do something about it. All right. So I know we're nearing the end of our time. So I just wanted to thank you all for spending this half hour with me. If we're not connected already, you can find me on any of the social media platforms: LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Just look up Joni D. Goodman. Don't forget the D. There's my website and my email address. I would love to connect with you if I can help you through your self-awareness journey. If I can debrief an assessment with you, if I can take you through some training around the concepts on that, I am more than glad to do that. I do have a couple opportunities coming up right away. One in short order is I mentioned a couple of times throughout this presentation that I do Brene Brown's work for Dare to Lead. So I have a 2-day virtual leadership workshop that is upcoming a week from Friday. We have just a few spots left because we are keeping the cohort small in this virtual container. So I would like to offer everyone that attended this session with the ATD Houston Fall Conference to receive a 10% discount. So Miriam's going to pop the registration link in there. Time is of the essence, folks. Sorry about that, but it is starting a week from Friday. It'll be the following 2 Fridays. And when you go to that link, it'll take you to the site where you have more information. And this will save you about $82.50 off of the early bird pricing, which is around $742 for the 2-day course. And the early bird pricing ends this week. So when you click on the link and you go to checkout, just enter Dare to Lead 10. All right, you're getting 10% off. So you'll remember that, Dare to Lead 10. And then another workshop that we have upcoming is in December, and I'm going to let Miriam talk about that one.
Sure. Thank you, Joni. So speaking of self-awareness, what we're calling the implementation course, and I just posted a link in the chat, is mainly around understanding what your limiting beliefs are, and then shifting those, transforming those limiting beliefs to empower you. And we also go over a blueprint of how to achieve the goals that you want. It's a 4-hour virtual webinar. It was very successful the last time we did it. We found a lot of people found it very empowering and a great tool for self-discovery. So click on the link there and you can register and find out more details.
Awesome. So thank you everybody for being with us for this half hour. I hope that you enjoy the rest of the day. Make sure that you take advantage of that Spotify playlist between the sessions so you can keep those feel-good hormones coursing through you, and let us know how we can support you, and enjoy the rest of your day.